So good morning, Planet Earth. This is Eric Howerton with another episode of Big Talk About Small Business. I am here 100% alone today I'm supposed to be a co-host, but today I am the host. Our main host and great entrepreneur, Mark Zweig, is somewhere outside in this world creating a business of some sort, I'm sure right now. He is doing that business. And but he's left me here all alone. And he said that I could do a podcast on my own without him. And so one of the top folks that I wanted to reach out to was Colton Knittig.
Yeah.
Which is you got one heck of a challenging last name to pronounce.
Right. Very German.
Very German spelling last name. It's actually spelled like you said it earlier.
It's like knitting without the second N. So IG.
Yeah, it's just IG. So, yeah, it's confusing. But being in good journalism fashion, I wanted to make sure how to pronounce your last name before I said it on live on the podcast.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So Colton is an entrepreneur, has been for quite some time. We'll hear a lot about his story. It's really actually cool. But Colton, welcome to the show. And how did we first meet? We met at like like consultation.
It was like a leadership meetup kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was like a lunch or something where a lot of us were in there, and there were some really, really smart folks in that room that day.
For sure.
Pretty cool. A lot of cool businesses. But that's whenever I first got introduced to you, and then you and I had a few meetings in between there and really hit it off. I mean, I think that, typical thing, right? Entrepreneurs like to talk to other entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
don't we?
For sure. Absolutely.
Because it's a pretty lonely road.
Exactly. Yeah. It sounds kind of egotistical to say lonely at the top, but I guess, it's a unique like path. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of, gravitate toward each other sometimes to sharing like the wins and the losses and talk about what's going on. So
what's crazy is like you say that, but I mean, like if you're an entrepreneur and say, hey, I'm going to start my own idea, my own business. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're immediately at the top. I mean, it's not like it's, like you said, it's not a glorious statement, but like you can be you can be your own employee,
right,
and be at the top and be lonely as hell.
Right.
It's actually really lonely at that point.
Right.
And
so, before you build out a team and bring people on to work with you and stuff.
Yep.
I tell people, like, people ask for my title, and I think titles are kind of silly, especially when you're at my stage. But the title is president, but I also like janitor, mailroom guy, accounting, so I wear all the hats. So that's kind of how it starts out.
What's cool about this podcast too is that, I mean, like whether you're just starting a business, I bet about a lot of our listeners are actually a lot of folks that are working for bigger companies that have a dream, like you and I have had,
right,
to start your own business. And that's always a pretty big decision, I think, for a lot of folks. Some for others, more for some others than others. But but these conversations, just to know and hear folks like ourselves that everybody that's been in here that's been an entrepreneur, has all kind of had the same common thread. Like it's like, it is what it is, right?
Right.
I mean, in these conversations always take a life of their own, just like what I'm doing at this exact very moment.
Right,
so,
right.
Hey, man, so tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, what your companies are.
Sure.
And then what kind of triggered your desire to start it up.
So kind of the full backstory. I started my first business when I was 10. Mm-hmm. And for some reason back then, I always thought that, for kids of that age, if you want to make money, girls do babysitting and boys mow lawns.
Yeah.
And of course it's not true, but at the time, I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, that's just what you saw.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And so I started a little lawn care business with a friend of mine.
Cool.
Grew that pretty substantially while I was in high school.
So what are you, like a sophomore, junior? Or
at the time, I was like 10 or 11 when I first got started.
Oh, okay. So
and
before
then
high school, you started this lawn care, and it grew in as you continue with high school.
Right. Yeah, cool. I grew into like pretty legitimate business. Bought my partner out when I was 16 or 17.
So you did your first acquisition, I guess, or your first buyout.
It was more of just kind of a splitting of the business, right?
Yeah.
We kept it simple. We were like, all right, you take these accounts, I'll take these accounts, and we'll go our separate way.
Cool.
So but yeah, so I did that for like 3 more years. Came up here I was from Fort Smith. I came up here to go to school. Sophomore year of college, I was kind of managing it from a distance. I had a guy in Fort Smith doing the actual work, and it just got too much. So I ended up selling.
So hold on, I'm gonna because I'm gonna make sure I'm understanding.
Sure.
Like, so you continued on with your portion of the lawn care business from
Right.
high school, and you moved up to Northwest Arkansas to go to college at the
Right.
U of A.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you kept your lawn care business in Fort Smith operating.
Right. Right.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, I just think, I wanted to put a pin in that because that's actually pretty unique. Like,
Right.
So you were basically operating a company, owning a company that was being ran on its own without your presence while you're going
Right.
to school.
Yeah, I was doing kind of the operation side
Yeah.
of the business, and I had some people in Fort Smith doing like the running around, doing the labor part.
Was it profitable?
Yeah, it was.
That's
yeah,
great,
for
man.
sure. It wasn't huge, but
Yeah.
I think, best year, maybe cleared like 60K, but
Wow.
at 16, that's like, might as well be $1 million, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was,
for sure.
yeah. So, yeah, like, ran that for a couple years when I came up to the U of A.
Yeah.
And it kind of got a little unwieldy. So I sold it at that point.
What do you mean? Like, what was going on there and then?
Just, managing, employees who
Yeah.
were, younger than me. So they're all high school age.
Mhm.
And it was kind of a lot to handle. I wanted to focus on going to school and also, just having fun while I was in college.
Sure.
And not, and going back and forth to Fort Smith every, 4 days.
It's business. Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it's always problems, right?
Right.
They're just,
there's always something.
yeah.
So yes, a lot of people told me this kind of blue sky. There was really nothing there to sell. So, but I threw a flyer out there, listed it, in the newspaper. This was a long time ago, and got a couple inquiries and ended up selling it for a pretty good amount. So
Really?
yeah, so offloaded that, focused on school for a few years, and just kind of hung out. So
Man, that makes me, I'm really envious of that. I wish I would have had that business sense. Back at that age, that's just really cool. Like, it didn't dawn on me until I was in like my early 20s,
Right.
about a business. And even then I haven't, I wouldn't say that I was like a business person like that. Like, you were operating, running. That's really cool.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate
well done, man.
Yeah, so that was kind of the first foray into business.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yeah,
it was
so you exited out in your first business. How old were you when that happened?
19.
Dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I looking back, I probably should have bought like, Bitcoin and real estate, but
Sure,
I was a college kid, just
Yeah.
focused on like,
Did you just burn through it in college?
I've always been super frugal.
Okay.
So I didn't like have to get a job, like a lot of my friends did, but, I just, I made it last.
So you kind of just took those earnings and you just kind of just rolled it out. That was your college. Like, you could focus on studies,
Right.
focus on hanging out, whatever,
Right.
enjoy life
Yeah.
from that exit.
Right.
And so how long, that like kind of last you 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 years. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge amount of money, but
Right.
at the time, like, I didn't have a lot of overhead. Right.
Yeah.
So, I was living in the dorms. Actually, I was living in a fraternity house at the time, and,
What fraternity?
Pike.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm a same
And-
guy from back in the day.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah. We would
Um,
have been fighting each other.
probably. Yeah. Yeah. If I was a little older, we would be in the streets.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Just hanging out. Hey, what does that mean? Maybe I'm younger than you.
No, it may be. Yeah.
I'm 23.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. You look great.
Thanks, man. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So after that, you rolled out through college, and then you graduated,
Right.
And then what goes on next? Like, when's
So-
your next?
Yeah. So I went to work for a Walmart vendor.
Okay.
And
So
it was.
did you in school? I guess you studied. What did you study?
I studied finance,
Finance,
and
okay.
just because I thought it was interesting.
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to end up working for myself eventually, but I just focused on something that I thought would keep my attention.
And being
So-
the fact that you're at the U of A in Northwest Arkansas, being going to work for a vendor or supplier, a Walmart supplier, right?
Right. Mhm.
Seems like a pretty good career path.
Right.
And so you got an opportunity there. So that was your first full-time employment after college.
Right. First full-time
Okay.
job, and
What were you
it
doing
was
there?
I was kind of working with the sales team.
Okay.
So, but I was doing a little bit of everything. So it's really cool. Like, on the first day, my boss told me, he's like, you can go to any meeting that I'm in, He's like, I might tell you to go stand in the corner and keep your mouth shut,
Yeah.
but you're welcome to come to any meeting that you want.
Yeah.
And I just took that as an opportunity to learn.
Great.
And
Good
just, soaked it up. Wasn't, a huge paycheck, but, I didn't have a lot of overhead. I took that as an opportunity just to kind of like hunker down and learn what.
How long did you do that?
Almost 2 years. So, I was there for like 22 months. And, one day my boss pulled me aside and he's like, hey, you aren't really loving it here. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So we kind of parted ways and, messed around with a few different ideas. Went back and talked to the guy that was running the China team at that business. And we started our own thing. So we toyed around with a few different ideas. He's a lighting guy. He's a product engineer and a LED expert. And, one night I was grilling for some friends in Fayetteville, and their porch light was out. So I was flipping burgers, and I would have to pick up the burger, take it inside, look at it, see if it was done, go back out, throw it on the grill, or put it inside. And I had kind of the classic like eureka moment, like why can't we just put a flashlight directly on the grill tools?
Yeah.
And Grillight was kind of born from there. So
wow,
yeah,
that's cool. So when you had that epiphany as you're grilling a hamburger,
right,
in the dark. How long did it take you from when you had that epiphany? So did you immediately reach out to this guy and you're like, hey man, because y'all were already trying to work on some ideas.
We were already working together.
So the partnership was kind of already formed.
Right.
Did you have like an LLC and all that formalities?
I don't think we did at that point. We were just like, hey, let's
do something together.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of, flex our creative, muscle a little bit, get out of the box and make something of our own. Right.
Yeah.
And he was kind of in the same boat. He's 10 years older than me, but the same kind of thing. He had always been working for somebody else. And so we just we had a few different ideas, and we said, all right, this is one that we can like pursue. Made our first prototype. Went to a show in Kansas City. It was our spatula, and it was a barbecue competition. We walked around like 2:00 in the afternoon. Everyone's like, all right, another spatula, whatever. Came back at 9 when it was dark, and we had like a crowd around us looking at it. Yeah, because people immediately thought it was something cool and unique.
So when, like, how long was it from when you had the idea to when you went to that barbecue competition?
Pretty quick. We made a prototype in like 45 days.
Wow, that's great.
Because that's what he does, and he's in China and just whipped it out real quick.
Okay, so he lives in China. Okay, cool.
Yeah. He's an expat, but he at the time he had been there for over 10 years.
Wow.
So moved over there to learn Chinese and just fell, like a lot of Americans, fell into a lot of different opportunities and stayed. So
good for him, man, that's a really cool mixture of partnership there.
Right.
And the fact that you're able to go to market so quick. So there's a couple of things that so let's show the audience a little bit about products here. So you got these laid out on tape. I'm hoping, I'm sure they should be able to see it like this, but
right. So these, you point them down, and they open up.
Okay.
You squeeze them, and they open up. It's called a gravity lock.
Oh.
And you point them up, and they lock again.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. It's one of our patented features.
This is your patent.
Yeah. So it was one of the.
They got a patent on that. Is really cool.
Right. The idea is when you're cooking, you don't want to put your beer down, right, to close your tongs up. So you just all one-handed.
Wow, man.
And the flashlight, obviously all the tools have the built-in light, pops out. So yeah.
And then so the light just turns on. Oh,
just click on the little red button there.
Just click on. There you go. So
there you go.
You're able to see your stuff.
Right. Yeah, and
you do that all in one fell swoop. I can turn the light on as I pick it up, and then
there you go.
If I want to close it up. I mean, it's all
second nature now.
That's really cool. So why do you allow the user to take the light out? Like, what's the point of that?
If they want to dishwash it, the lights are water resistant, but not necessarily dishwasher proof. So you can just pop them out.
That's cool. And so you got the tongs.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember if I was using these. I'm sure I'd get really used to it.
Right.
And then you got the spatula.
Right. So these are our first two items, and our first year we only had the spatula. Then we kind of expanded from there.
Yeah, I think. When did you come out with the tongs?
It was like 2016.
Oh, okay. So when I met you, you already had both of these.
Then. Right. So now we have like a full assortment. We have brushes and forks and
really? You got
grill mats.
These too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Everything has the lights
I guess
built in.
folks can go to Grillight.com.
Grillight.com.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is. GRILLIGHT.com.
Right.
Got it. So we're missing one L, but it'll look weird if there's three L's there, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, the idea was we put a whole like 30 minutes of thought behind the name. But we wanted something that people would read the name and know what it is, you know. So it's a grill tool with a light.
Yeah. So there it is, folks. Like, so if you're going in store, so where are these sold at?
We're in Ace Hardware, a lot of mom and pop stores. We're in BJ's right now.
Okay.
Wholesale, and a lot of independent stores all over the place. So
are you on Walmart?
Not right now. No, we're on Walmart.com.
You're on Walmart.com. Okay.
Yep.
Have you tried to get in Walmart stores yet?
We've talked to them.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't mean to pry on your business, but I would just think that this would be like, I mean, just from my perspective, I mean, it seemed like that folks would really like these things there.
Right.
Man, this is really cool.
Yeah. So we're in about 2,000 stores, but about 1,800 to 2,000 stores all around the country. Some in Canada. So we're doing some international stuff now.
How's it? I guess, how are things going? How is it moving off the shelves and stuff like that?
Good. Yeah. I mean, it's, we're growing every year.
Yeah.
It's, you got a lot of prospects for next year on the table too. So,
and you just went through some, because I think when you and I were talking about last time we spoke, you were going to go through some packaging changes, weren't you?
Right.
Yep. So did you do that? This is a result of that? Okay.
Yeah. So this is new packaging. This is actually, not the current iteration of the new packaging. So this is new since we talked, but we have another version that's out now.
Oh, okay.
Just like about a month old.
Oh, really?
So,
so you're always updating your packaging.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the point of that? Just because you just go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's just gotta, when it's on the shelf, you got like 2-3 seconds to tell the story.
Yeah.
And if the packaging doesn't tell the story very clearly, then you lose the customer. They just see it as like an expensive grill tool. Obviously we don't have the name recognition of some of the big guys out there, so we've got to kind of get creative with how we present it.
Yeah.
I met these guys years ago that had, they did a lot of like flashlights and like outdoor equipment and stuff. And they would take like a $3 flashlight and put it in like a $6 box, and then they would retail it for $100. And it's kind of the Apple model of like the packaging perceived value of the product.
Yeah.
So you want to have something really nice to kind of show that it's a nice product.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's, since our show's like really geared towards entrepreneurs, small business owners, right? Like let's dive into that, because I think we could probably scroll off into shopper marketing kind of talk and just product marketing. But I would think that the listeners, everybody has an idea, kind of like what you did, right? You had an epiphany. I mean, there's a lot of folks that have those epiphanies.
Right.
But there's probably not as many folks that actually see that to fruition. So at what point, after you had your epiphany, like, and you went back to your partner, like, hey man, here's my idea. He's like, yeah, it sounds good. Let me do some drawings.
Right.
And then that all is exciting and doesn't cost much except your time. But then you start getting into the realness of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you had to, did you guys go out and raise capital before you made your first prototype? I mean, or did you make a prototype and then go raise capital? How does it work?
We just kind of self-funded it from the beginning. So we made the prototype, which, prototype's pretty inexpensive to make a single prototype. Got a good response to that Kansas City show that I mentioned.
Yep. So at that Kansas City show, were you just walking around through prototype?
Just walking around the prototype, showing it to people. So just to get a vibe for what people thought. If people thought it was as cool as we thought it was,
so I think that it's really important, right? Because that step that you made right there, you went out and got a prototype, fairly inexpensive, right? And well, first of all, you have the idea, but then you have a partner and you have a team of folks here that can execute a prototype,
right?
So your partner was an experienced engineer,
right?
And knew how the hell to do this. So then you don't have costs with working with an engineer in completely unfamiliar territory. You have somebody that is invested with you as a partner that actually knows how it is excited to do that. So I think that's really important. But then you get your prototype, and then you guys immediately go to a show where you're going to have your target audience.
Right.
and use this product.
Right.
And I love what you were telling me about earlier. You're there walking around the show. Nobody's giving it much attention. It looks like another spatula. Right? This is what you took, the spatula
Yep.
part. But then you come back in the evening time and these people are out there cooking, right?
Yeah, it's a barbecue competition.
Yeah.
It's not a retail show.
Right.
Like there's general public is there.
Yeah.
But they're not there to buy products.
But it's your audience. It's
right.
Your exact users.
Yeah. So it's a barbecue competition where these guys are cooking for like 18, 20, 24 hours at a time. And yeah, we just went back at nighttime and these guys are, whipping up stuff on the grill and we just showed it to them. They all thought it was super
So you're
cool.
like, hey man, why don't you try using this puppy?
Yeah.
See if
exactly.
you like that.
Right.
And they used it and their instant reaction right then gave you feedback as an entrepreneur to have confidence.
Exactly.
Whose idea was it to go to that show?
I don't remember. It was a while ago, but I think it might have been mine because my partner came over from China to come with me.
Okay.
And so he was here. We were just talking shop, and we made plans to go to that show together. So,
and then whose idea was it to go back? Like, so y'all went during the day,
right?
Trying to show it to people. They're like, whatever,
right?
And did y'all leave?
Yep,
you left,
right?
What triggered y'all to? Did you just say, hey, let's leave today? Let's leave during the day and let's come back later? Or did you leave disappointed?
I think at the time, I still believed in it, right? So at the time, and again, this was a long time ago, but the feedback we got was like, we don't need another spatula. It's another, whatever, I got a spatula right here.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
Solicitor.
Exactly. Yeah. So we came back at nighttime and these guys had like, the headlamps on and they're like, trying to see what they're doing. And, I just handed it to a couple guys and they thought it was great. So.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, I mean, that's what to me, that's what entrepreneurism is all about, is getting that feedback from the audience and seeing people engage with something that you believe can solve a market need. And then, but just those little moments, are so special. That's why I just keep asking questions about it, because that to me is just like where all the rubber meets the road. So you got some feedback, and I mean, basically you're having your own in-person focus group study without having a focus group study. And so did you need, like from there, then did you go out and make your investment? Did you get confidence from that? And you're like, okay, this is worth 1,000 product run? How that work?
Yeah. So we at that point we're like, all right, we're not the only ones that think this is a good idea. I think we made like 2,500 units to start, which is, not a very big run. And went to a show in New York, and it's like a New York gift show, New York Now.
Okay. Trade show.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a wholesale trade show where we're meeting people from the press, and shop owners, to sell the product.
What shop owners?
Like mom and pop shops, and like there was a jewelry store that I remember that they had like a little men's section for Father's Day.
Yeah.
And so they bought a couple dozen for like every single store that they had, and it kind of took off from there. So
had you been to anything like that before?
No, that's totally new.
Partner?
Nope. No.
That's so cool, isn't it? Wasn't that exciting?
Yeah, for sure. It was so much fun. It was in New York City.
Did y'all fly out there? Or
we flew out, and like our booth was embarrassing.
Yeah,
like
it was like a 10x10 booth.
It was a 5x10.
Oh, that's even worse.
And because we came in so late, they had already sold the whole area, and they're like, well, we got this little spot next to a column that will like squeeze you in. And I got pictures of us at that booth and it just looks horrible, but
you should have brought that.
Yeah, I know. Right. It was, I don't know if I want the world to see it, but it was
all greasy from sweating about it. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, cause those are like, that's a pretty big moment for you guys.
Right.
I mean, you got a lot of angst and you got all these expectations. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're so optimistic that somebody's going to come in and say, I'll take 50,000 of these.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So how did that go though? I mean,
it was great. And there was, that jewelry shop owner that I mentioned, it was our biggest order. Is like, like $1,400 or something like that. And
so how many products did that equal with it?
That was like 120 units, 120 pieces.
She met you on the spot, checked out your product and said, hey, I'm going to order 120 of these roughly.
Right. Yeah. And
did she make the order at the show?
She did. Yeah. She made the order at the show. So
is that kind of what that trade shows is? I'm sorry, man.
No, you're good. You're good.
Is that kind of what that show's all about? Because I know some shows aren't there for business.
Yeah, so it's both, right? So there's some what we call like big box buyers or some bigger retailers that they don't make buying decisions on the spot at those kind of shows, but they'll check it out, exchange information, and you just kind of follow up.
Yeah.
But the mom and pops, they buy on the spot.
They're there to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think it's so important, right? Because like if you look back now, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for a small new business, new product, to go to some of these markets and these shows and these events where you meet these other audience pieces that can actually make freaking decisions right on the spot. Because like to your point, the bigger you get, the bigger order you get, the more crap that comes with it. Right. I mean, it's great to have that big check, but it's just like anything in life. You know, the bigger your check or the more freedom you have, the more accountability and responsibility. You know, legal and all these things. Yeah, but for sure. I like that idea. I like that statement about a mom and pop business. I'm walking. I'm the owner. I sign the checks. I can make this order. Right. Right. Yeah, and that was kind of our focus from day one, is these mom and pops, because they're, you know, they want a little bit higher end product. They don't want something that's available at every single big box retailer. And we're a higher end product. We're not the cheapest grill tools on the market. We don't want to be either. And that's exactly what they're looking for. So that's that mom and pop has kind of been our bread and butter. Really? So that's we sold to a few majors, like I mentioned, BJ's. We did a deal with Lowe's last year. That was pretty huge. But the mom and pops are always great. That's really cool. So how do you leave that show, fairly successful event, because you said you made 2,500 product order before the show, right? And then I know that one lady bought 120 of those. Right. I mean, how successful was that first event on that inventory that you had on hand? Well, I think we sold, at least half our inventory. That's great. In one day at a show? It was a 3-day show. Okay. But the thing about those shows is, especially nowadays, it's more about like who you meet and the contacts you make. So I met the editors of Oprah magazine. Okay. And we got into Oprah. We were like 4 months old, and we got featured in like Oprah's summer gift guide. That's fantastic. And it just kind of took off from there. That's great. So yeah. So now you have the PR. Right. That's great. So it takes off from there, and then you start getting inbound inquiries and orders. Right. And so is that kind of the trajectory of the business? I mean, it just kind of like people start talking and knowing you're getting calls and you're fulfilling orders, and then are you in kind of. So did you amplify that with were you doing any other marketing, any other shows or anything? We did a few other shows, but didn't really do a ton of kind of outbound marketing at the time. It just kind of grassroots, meeting people. We'd get inquiries from the press that we got. I think that year we also got into like Good Housekeeping. So a few other, and it just kind of took off. So that's awesome, man. Yeah. And that was how many years ago? No? That's like 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years next month. Yeah. That's awesome. So, but yeah, we grew quite a bit that year. And one of our biggest customers was Sky Mall magazine. If you remember back in the day, we were the number one product in Sky Mall that year. And then in December, they went out of business. Really? And yeah. So I got a bankruptcy notice, and they owed me like $40,000, which was at the time was like 20% of our first year revenue. Yeah, it was a lot to you guys. And we ended up getting it all taken care of. Good. We got most of it, but that was a good kind of like trial by fire in our first year. A little eye opening. It's like, okay, this is why people have contracts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, man, that's awesome, man. So, and so from there, you just kind of kept building up on your mom and pop business thing. What about like your own website, your own storefront? So we did a website. To be honest, that our website, like direct consumer sales, has never really been a strong suit. Okay. I tend to focus more on like the wholesale side of the business, and that's probably something that we've could have done better at over the years. But it's for me at least, it's a lot easier to kind of get those build those small number of relationships with these key buyers. And they keep coming back for more. Yeah. So, there's a lot of folks that go that way. It's just interesting. Like, I think that even, we've been seeing more folks started up on a digital first, their own storefront, full control. Right. A lot of that's happening, but I think that that's only in the last, really honestly, 5 to 10 years that you've seen a lot of those people taking that route. And so when you started, it was kind of a little bit before, like wholesale definitely was the majority of everything that was going on. Right. We get a lot of, the direct sales through our website. A lot of that came from the PR, right? So unlike on the Oprah feature,
they, put our website, right there in the magazine. I don't think they even have a print magazine anymore, but back then it was, a long time ago. But we got a ton of traffic off of that.
That's really cool.
And for a while we would occasionally get like a huge spike in traffic, and I would be like, all right, what's going on today? And I would have to figure out who put us on a gift guide or a list or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. So we just kind of organically stumbled into a lot of that stuff. I wish I could take credit for it, but
well, a lot of times, it's not all luck, but there is definitely some luck involved. I believe in business, and being at the right place at the right time. That's kind of lucky in a way. You know, you can't. There's no plans of the way that y'all approached it. You just took the obvious steps, and just so happened. And you went to this trade show,
right,
with no intention, and you had no idea that Oprah magazine was going to be there,
right.
And you make those contacts, and next thing you know, it happens. But I think so would you agree that if you're in business, you got to show the hell up?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It's all those lucky breaks and stuff, like they don't just fall in your lap. You got to be at the right place at the right time, like you said. Like what's the saying? It's like preparation. Like preparation is the key to all that luck. Like, it's funny. Like over the years, there'll be ups and downs, right? So, but anytime something like negative happens, like a few days or a few weeks later, like something great would happen. We'd be back up on top, right? So, that kind of stuff is all about just being there and being prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you guys hadn't made the investment, taken the risk to go to the show? Because when you went to that show, you had just got 2,500 in inventory, and now you have this expense of New York City, which you got flights, hotels, time. There's a lot behind that.
Yeah.
That you're putting, and you said you're self-funded,
right?
And so, there's a lot behind that. So you have to invest in it. That's another, one of the big parts of the definition of entrepreneur is that you have a significant financial risk, associated with what you're doing.
Yeah, at the time I was like 23.
Yeah.
So I figured, if I crash and burn, like I'll just get a job.
Sure.
So I didn't want to like stick my neck out too far, but I always thought, I'm young, I don't have a lot of overhead. Back to, like I said before, like it's, not really a lot of risk if you can just go back and do something else.
Yeah, so, sure. Yeah, I think that's also a good point. I think too, like when you are that young, you don't have much to lose.
Right.
So your risk profile is actually not too great.
Right.
But I also think that if you are that young, because just sort of that, around that age too, my first business, it kind of puts you into this, like, even if you, like my first business was not successful. Right. My magazine I had. But what it did teach me is that, I actually can do this.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And I got so much value out of it. Like, the way I've always kind of looked at it, Colton, I don't know if you agree with this, but like the education I would get in 2 years of being an entrepreneur and losing $60,000 or even $200,000.
Right.
Is way worth more than a college education. Yeah. Any day of the week.
For sure. I think that,
no offense.
Yeah, no offense. But I still stay in touch with my old boss from that Walmart vendor. And he told me recently that, he's like, you got an education that's more valuable than like, a Wharton MBA.
Yeah.
Through like the School of Hard Knocks. Yep. Just doing it over the years, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And there's so much that you learn by doing that you can't learn by reading a book.
And I think it's also because like when you get like real pressure on you, like when you made your first, like you could study in school all day long about, accounting methods of buying inventory and pro forma and the forecasting about all these if-then scenarios, right? But until you actually send that check, and now you got 2,500 of these damn things in your garage. Yeah. And you're looking at like, okay. And then, if you sold 100 of these for the next, 25 months, you'll break, whatever. It's pretty low, but when you have these things sitting in boxes in your face and you have to get rid of this inventory, I mean, there's something real about that shit.
Yeah.
And there's not anything that a book or spreadsheet or
Right.
professor can tell you whenever you basically have to make the moves. I honestly think, and you kind of said something about it earlier, it's about getting the hell up in the morning and getting at it and doing whatever it takes. And you mentioned earlier when you worked with that supplier, that Walmart supplier, like he said, come to any meeting you want. And that's something I greatly appreciate about what you said, because I see it not happening so much all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to get on too big of a soapbox about it, but it's like for any young person that is going into the workforce to not soak up like a sponge the opportunity to be around folks that have more experience, like that is all your wealth is sitting right there with somebody that you can shadow.
Right.
And if you're diligent, I mean, you're taking freaking notes and then you're applying it. You get up earlier, you dress the part, you show the hell up. I mean, that's the difference between you as an entrepreneur in that setting,
right,
versus what most of the folks do.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was that drive that you had back then? Like, what were you hungry for?
Well, you know, I was really lucky in having that business that I started really young and sold. And that kind of opened my eyes to the fact that like, oh, there's another way that's not go to work, get a paycheck, you know, just put in the, 40 hours a week and then call it good. So I kind of knew going into that I wanted to end up at some point working for myself, doing my own thing. And, I just treated it like a opportunity to learn. No, it was, I had other job offers that were more money. But it was a pretty flat organization. Like I said, the president said I can come to any meeting I want. And small enough that I could kind of understand it.
Okay.
And, just, went to, kind of had the end in mind, right? So I got to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what do I like, what do I not like.
So you almost walked into the job like seeing it as a learning opportunity versus it.
Yeah, there was 2 more years of college that I was getting paid to go to.
Yeah.
So it was an extra, 2 more years of education that I didn't have to pay for.
I think so many people like they don't, and that's honestly that's just a different way to look at it. Like you actually, what I also, Mark and I talk about this a lot on the show, is how as entrepreneurs, like a lot of people would call us very, risk adverse, or we don't think about risk or whatever. I mean, in all actuality, we do. We just think about it differently, because when you're saying that, you're actually lowering your risk because you're going and getting that job and getting paid while you're learning versus paying somebody to go learn. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get in, and with that, not even that, but then you have the quality and attribute to, even though you're getting paid to learn versus paying to learn, you're walking in the door still wanting to learn.
Yep.
Whereas the worst thing in the world is to pay somebody to learn and then not want to learn.
Right.
And that's where you get and a lot of folks don't do well in the college setting. Like we've built this freaking mentality in society that everyone should go to college.
Right.
That's just the way to do it.
Yeah.
Colleges love that because
for sure,
for good business reasons. Right. But I mean, the reality is that if you're going to go and pay someone to learn and then you don't go learn, you don't want to, like, you shouldn't be there. You're sucking up air, and you're wasting a lot of money.
Right.
But that's become a lot of things. But the fact that you got paid to learn and then you still wanted to learn demonstrates in you a different type of person that you are on this earth.
Well, I mean, like I said, I feel lucky that I had that business that I started early on, and I just simply started it because I didn't know any better. And when my friends were going to, scoop ice cream for $8 an hour, I was, I could go out and mow lawns for 8 hours and make $600 on a Saturday, and, I could kind of run my own schedule and figured out that there was another way, right? That wasn't that, you get out of high school, you go to college, you get out of college, you get a job, you work for 35 years, you get your gold Rolex, and then you die sometime, after that. Like, that's that's not really a life, so I thought.
So why don't you want that? That's the question. Why?
It just doesn't seem interesting to me. It's like.
So what is interesting to you?
something new every day, you
Yeah.
know, something exciting. Like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's always different. And you're not going in looking at a spreadsheet for 8 hours a day. And, you know, it just didn't seem interesting to me.
So with Grillight, like you do this full time, right? Are you, what's your title with the company? Are you CEO or
Yeah, president.
president?
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what you're full time in this have been for how long?
About 10 years.
About 10 years. So how long was it when you had your inventory, your 2,500 inventory until you were full time, or were you always full time?
That was always full time.
Okay.
So yeah, so I didn't pay myself at first. You know, I had again, you know, I was lucky to have kind of low overhead and not a lot of expenses. So
Didn't have 7 kids running around.
Yeah,
2
exactly.
ex-wives or anything.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I you know, did this for a couple of years, and then my partner was like, "Hey, we gotta start paying you." He's like, "I don't care if it's with debt or whatever, we need to pay you something."
Yeah.
So I started drawing like a small salary from it. Then we grew we almost doubled, or like 50% growth every year for several years after that. So
That's great. That's great. And so now, I mean, obviously, how many folks do y'all have on the team full time?
we just have 4, so we keep it pretty lean. But
That's great.
we in our third year, I think it was our third year, we were self-funded, outgrew our cash, ran out of inventory for like 5 months, had nothing to sell.
Oh, gosh.
And at that point, I was like, all right, we got to do something else. So I was talking to a family friend about kind of the struggles of that point. And it was a good problem to have, right? We weren't struggling because we didn't have any customers. We had too many. So he said one day, he's like, why don't we talk about me coming on board? And so he bought a chunk of the business at the time. He had recently sold his business. He had a consulting business. He sold to Deloitte. He was looking for the next thing. So he bought a piece of the company, came in, and kind of what I'd like to say, like added some gray hair to the business, like some experience, and helped us kind of scale past that and put in some good like operational standpoint to help us keep growing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so you ran into a situation, you didn't have startup capital that you required.
Right.
You had growth capital that you required.
Right.
And that's a whole different ball game.
Right.
I mean, because then you have financials that anyone's able to look back and see that there's an opportunity that actually saves you equity.
Right.
Which is the most, like Mark likes to say, is the most expensive form of capital, right?
Right.
Is when you sell equity, because it could cost you a fortune down the road.
Right.
But you had a history. That's really cool. So I mean, like that. But do you think you could have prevented that time period? I mean, had you planned better in the beginning, or
probably? I mean, we were doing. We didn't have even really a lot of bank financing, so we probably could have worked on that a little bit more, and just line of credit, to try to. But at the same time, like it wasn't just money; it was experience. Yeah. And he brought both.
No,
so,
sure. I'm just kind of thinking, like, just I guess financially, when you hit that cash flow circumstance. So to kind of paint that out, like if you had 500 units that you have out in the market selling, you're waiting on those sales to happen to get capital to buy another 500 units to put in the market, and you just got you sold out of everything, and you couldn't replenish the supply that your wholesaler, that your partners needed.
Right.
And so you're just sitting there going, sorry, I need cash to pay for my
right. Yeah. And it was that inventory takes 75, 90 days to get here.
Yeah.
So we were trying to do just in time inventory because we were short on cash. And that was fine as long as your growth is steady.
Yeah.
But we would have these huge spikes, or I would get a call from some department store that wanted 1,500 units or something, and that would just clear us out. And you can't, when your growth is kind of lumpy like that, it's hard to forecast. So I was just as the chief sales guy, I was like taking orders left and right, with reckless abandon, and then next thing I know, we don't have any stock. So
I would have done the exact same damn thing. Just write the damn order, man.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so the new partner, really came in and kind of helped level that out, and that's the right time, though.
Right.
I think that to any listener out there that has a product idea, which is why I'm glad you're on the show. I think you might be one of the only product entrepreneurs, just off the top of my head, but I mean, like, that has a tangible product. There's just a lot of people that have these ideas, and
Right.
and you can certainly start up something on your own, self-fund it.
Right.
And there is a right time to bring in a partner, an additional partner and capital. And it sounds like you made some really good moves on that regard.
Well, yeah, I just remember we had a guy that we had tapped to raise capital early on, like before we hit that point. And it was kind of a loan shark deal. It was like, I'll give you, I forgot, like 200 grand, for 30%. And then you pay me,
or
well, it was equity. And then, you'll pay me that 200 grand back at 8% interest. And then I'll keep my 30%. So it was
like a convertible note or
yeah, convertible. Yeah. So we were like, nah, like we'll figure it out on our own, and we got past that to a point where we had a business, right? We had proven demand. Like I said, the problem was not that we didn't have customers; it was that we had too many. So at that point, it's a lot easier to go out and raise money. So,
dude, there's such a story here, like, and it's like, when is the right time to raise capital? Mark and I talked about this a lot. A lot of the problem isn't about like going out and pitching and raising capital for business. Like, we probably might have an impression with some folks that that's what we talk about. It's not about VCs being bad or private equity.
Right.
It's about the timing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a stigma of understanding that in order to start a business, what you do is, number one, you build a PowerPoint and you build spreadsheets and you spend months doing that. And then you go out and raise capital and then you start your business.
Yeah.
Like, that stigma.
Well, I've heard you guys talk about like the glorification of entrepreneurship, and it's
you got something to say about that?
Well, no, it's like it's people. It's exciting. It's sexy, to start a business and do your own thing. But
we're sexy,
right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Find us on Sports Illustrated.
That's right.
But no, it's and people get this idea like, oh, I got an idea. Now I need money to do it. Like, you can, you do need some money to get started.
Sure.
But we started very lean. We spent like $3,000 on tooling for our first product, and, probably 15,000 on the first production order. And you can make it happen, before you get to that point where you're raising capital, and it's so much cheaper to do it later on, like you said. So.
Yeah, your equity. I mean, like, think about it. Like, the investment that you're making, so the $15,000 it takes to get your first run,
right?
Someone or some way there has to be some sort of investment of cash to make that happen. Is it coming out of your pocket? But anybody that invests in it has equity,
right?
I mean, it's kind of, whether somebody else would buy it is a different story, but
right.
So the more that you can self-fund it, is actually the more that you're investing in your own equity, and you're making your shares more valuable down the road.
Right.
Right. And I mean, but of course the risk to that is that you slip up along the way and you make all your shares go worth nothing or even negative. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, I think that timing is so important, and just like you said, I mean, it's good to know. It's good for people to know that you can do that. And actually, I mean, you and I both did. Mark did. And I think that there's greater reward because you do learn about the business, and like, a lot of times investors I don't care, like, there's no way that they can understand what your business is like. They might have done a Grillight spatula 10 years before you did. Now they're this expert in Grillight spatulas, but unless they're in the market, hearing from customers and the audience and watching that stuff, they don't know more than you do necessarily.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And you need to be, if you're raising capital, you need to be coming at it from a point of strength where you're the expert in the market, in the product. And, there's, like we got lucky where we raised capital from a guy that also brought a lot of operational know-how.
Yep.
But yeah, the whole idea of like people going out to just raise money from some, like nameless VC, that all they want is, a 2 or 3x return in the next 3 years. Like, that's not really the kind of partner that you want.
Yeah.
Because their motivations are different than yours.
Unless you're the entrepreneur that knows how to play that game, and that's what you're getting into.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's money to be made in that. I mean, and that's so. I mean, tell me what's next. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's the big jump?
So, about a year ago, we started working with a company that, they basically take products like Grillight and they do, national TV campaigns, national ad campaigns.
Yeah.
And, so we've kind of licensed the brand to them,
Okay.
the brand and IP. So we're kind of turning Grillight into a product development house. So we're working on kind of churning out the next products, and they're taking over kind of the sales and marketing side of it.
Wow.
Doing TV, doing, social media ads, that kind of stuff, and kind of trying to George Foremanify, the Grillight. So
Will it be under the same brand, or are they going to really?
Same brand. So basically these guys have built a machine,
Yeah.
To market products directly to consumers. And they're always looking for new, cool stuff, because their job is they're what they're good at is like sales and marketing. And they've got to kind of feed that beast with new, cool products. And, so we're working with them to kind of flip it around and continue like the big box and the retail growth, but also do a lot of direct consumer sales too. So
That's interesting. When does that start up?
We've started it recently, like a few months ago.
How's that going? Is it going well?
Yeah, it's going great.
So that allows you guys, your team of 4, not of direct employees, to really focus on supply chain.
Right.
Yeah.
And like what's next, right?
Really?
So
just product innovation. But you still own the brand.
Right. We do. Yeah.
They're just making some off the sale, basically.
Right. Yeah. So we own the brand, we own the company, but they're kind of partnering with us to grow it, much larger.
Do they make a percentage off every single sale that comes through?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter because I mean, like, I can see the point of that, because like if they're doing TV or whatever, somebody might see this product,
right,
and then they go buy it somewhere else down the road at a different time. And if I was doing the sales and marketing, I'd be like, man, I'm impacting that.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because of the investment I made. And so that's interesting.
Yeah. So they're kind of doing what we couldn't do, us still being, we have an investor, but still completely bootstrapped. They'll go into a big box retailer and say like, hey, not only is this a really cool product, but we're going to spend $10 million in the next 6 months on blasting it on every single TV in the country. Yeah. How many containers do you want? So that's kind of the sales pitch. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that happens quite a bit in this industry, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of people out there that kind of join forces and
don't we have a lot of those like around this area?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's a sales and marketing firm, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I know some of them do like more of like consultation, and but I know that some of them work on commission and have like, and some of them actually invest in it.
Right.
To do that. That's really cool, man. Well, best of luck on that, man. That's pretty interesting.
Thank you. Yeah. So
does that help you with your next stage on how you want your career to go?
I think so. Yeah. So I mean, it I love the sales side of it. And I'm still kind of working with them on that, but I can, we've grown quite a bit over the years, and we've had to kind of plow our profits back into just like maintaining inventory.
Yeah.
And now we get a chance to kind of take a breath and work on product innovation and some cool, exciting new stuff that's coming.
Yeah.
Out.
That's
So
really cool, man.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best on that. What's your, are they going to amplify your digital experience too with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So when you say direct consumer, I mean, it's like there's, like the website properties probably posted on different web stores and whatnot.
Right.
Making that more perfect.
Right.
Because when we talked about last time, I mean, with with the flywheel white spider business that I had, right? That, about data content and all that kind of stuff. It's just brutal, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's always changing too.
Dude, it's so brutal. Like and so having some partner that's kind of handling that.
Right.
Now, if they do a good job, that's the other part of the story. But
right, exactly. Yeah. So we vetted them pretty hard, and we did several different interviews with them to kind of talk about what their vision was and that kind of stuff. So but yeah, I mean, it gives us an opportunity to focus on some more fun stuff.
Yeah.
So,
you got any hints as to what's coming next that you can share, or you just gotta keep it close to lip?
We've got I can drop a few spoilers. we're doing a bit of a redesign on these tools to make them a little bit more streamlined, because these are designs that have, I love them, but they've been around for a while. So we're going to kind of update that a little bit. And we're working on a wire-free cleaning brush. It's like a grill cleaner. That's probably the top request that I get.
Why wire-free? What is that?
So there's like the wire bristles on grill cleaner brushes, and those bristles can like fall off and get in your grill.
They can also they can burn off too.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
That's happened to me before, or melted or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So we're working on one that's it's got the light, it's got like all the patented features of these tools, but it also has a brush on it too. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Man, what advice would you give a young, or doesn't matter, just a new entrepreneur that's starting something out on the product side of things in kind of the space you live? Like, what would be your advice?
I think back to what you were saying about take every opportunity to learn. Like there's that old trope of like sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Yeah.
Like every opportunity is either an opportunity to grow the business or learn how to grow the business, right? So that, and just like grit, like sometimes it's just you gotta stick with it.
Yeah.
I talked about kind of the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, and like when stuff gets hard, like you just stick with it, keep pushing through, and have that trust and belief in yourself that you'll get to that next stage.
Yeah.
And somehow you always end up getting there. So,
well, what about like in your industry too, though? Like, I mean, like what are some of the hard knocks to avoid? Like if I was saying, hey man, I got an idea of, something that's similar to your product. I mean, and I'm about to go off on it and do it. Like, like what's the big watch out from a wholesaling supplier based business?
So I've heard horror stories of, I was lucky, right? So my partner's in China.
Yeah.
He's there doing this, the manufacturing and like watching that and stuff. I've heard horror stories of people getting like, what we call like a golden sample, like a perfectly great sample. Everything's beautiful, works perfect. They order like 10,000 pieces of it, and then it shows up and they're all messed up. And then you can't get anybody on the phone, like what are you going to do? Go fly over to China and like find somebody? Like that happens all the time. So yeah, so you got to keep an eye on your suppliers and, make sure quality stays up and just be careful with that, I guess.
Was he able to do that? Like, just because, like, I mean, would he go meet face to face and validate and verify these?
Yeah. And then watch stuff as it comes off the line, and you inspect it as it comes off the line. And then again, when it goes in the container. And
really? Wow.
Yeah. So you just
got
to
monitoring that.
Right. Yeah. So you got to, because the last thing you want is a container full of product that you can't sell. So
it's terrible.
Yeah. So
that's so demoralizing too, man. I mean, I can't imagine, like, you've been waiting. I mean, like, there's all this anticipation. I mean, you've got so much on the line, and you get this.
Right. Pre-sales, all that.
And it's so freaking heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to return it would just be a nightmare.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly.
That's terrible.
So that's probably the biggest, watch yourself kind of warning, I guess, from doing a product business. And just, kind of maintain that quality. So
Colton, human beings can really suck sometimes.
Yeah,
man.
For sure.
But I think that, and you may or may not agree, but the longer I've gone in business, just realize, like, not everybody has really great intentions, and it's unfortunate, but I think the longer you go into it, like, you can kind of preemptively think about some of these situations that might come up. Then on the flip side, though, you don't want to make things so legalistic and contractual that you can't even make a move.
Right.
It's funny. Maybe you have this experience a little bit, but like I'm kind of weigh those things as I go along. Like, if I got a new, do I really need to get into some significant vendor contract for this amount of money? What are kind of the damages? What's the threat that's out there? What are my liabilities?
Yeah.
And a lot of the decisions I make on a regular basis, I've been finding myself noticing that I do that quite a bit.
Right.
And then if I start in my gut feeling like, well, I'm starting to feel a little bit vulnerable to this one specific thing, then I'll go take care of it at that time. I don't know. Do you experience that at all as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I mean,
super tight and perfect all the time.
Yeah. No, as you know, as I kind of grow as an entrepreneur, I kind of lean more towards that cautious side, right? I'm like a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm naturally optimistic, so I always think people have the best intentions.
I know.
And that everything is all sunshine and rainbows. But as through the years, I've kind of learned that it's not always the case. So you gotta cover your ass and
you do.
Yeah.
You do, and you also have to be interesting enough when you're working with suppliers and especially customers, right? And the public and partners. Like, you also have to be a good partner.
Yeah, for sure.
And not, because I cannot stand working with people that got to have everything signed.
Yeah.
And have these big extensive contracts.
Right.
Like, it's just like you slow me down. Like, and that becomes the bottleneck of freaking humanity. And that's what brings the United States of America down. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so anything else you want to share before we bounce on this?
I was just going to say on that last point, like I had someone reach out to me the other day, and they were like, I have a cool product idea. I want to kind of, manufacture it, bring it to market. What I need to do? Like, I don't, he was afraid to show it to anybody, because he thought they would steal his idea. And I, like, patent law is a whole can of worms, but if you have like a year to file a utility patent, right, after you kind of like announce your product to the world. So there's people that want to have all these like NDAs and all these like leaves before they will even show you their idea. And I was, I tried to put it as nicely as possible, but like most people are too busy to steal your idea. So like don't worry about people stealing your idea. Occasionally I guess you'll find someone that wants to, but 9 times out of 10, like, you just got to talk to people about it, get feedback. That's what we did at that show in Kansas City. Like, we took it and showed it to, thousands of people before we had any sort of, IP filed. But, we had to get that feedback to kind of see if we were, wasting our time and money.
Sure.
So yeah, that's
a really good point. I appreciate you saying that, because that would be one of my first concerns. And I've been there, right? Especially it's interesting. Like, and you can relate to this. Like, we're, a couple of decades into our entrepreneur life, at least I am, and in the sense that where I remember in my early stages, like it was I was so worried about somebody stealing stuff from me. And even though I was concerned about it, it still happened.
Right.
Number one, at certain times. But what I learned over time is that it's not much about like who's got the great idea. It's about who's the fastest.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The idea is like 5% of it, and the rest of it is like
speed,
the speed and hard work.
That's
and
it.
Yeah. So, there's, over the years, my friends used to come to me with their like wacky ideas for like products and stuff, and they've kind of like faded off. They've stopped doing that. But the ideas are great, but that's less than 10% of a business is the idea.
Yeah, you have to be. It's who's gonna, like you said earlier, who's got the grit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have an idea, are you gonna get it?
Right.
And go to market and do all the thousands of things that are required to make this freaking spatula come to life and be in somebody's hand.
Right.
Getting their barbecue on.
Yeah.
Dude, I love the patent right here, man.
Thanks,
That's
man.
pretty slick.
For sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, boom. Who came up with that? Was that your engineer?
That was my partner that did that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
cool, man. All right, Colton. Man, really appreciate you joining with us today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic product. Really cool story. Right here in Northwest Arkansas.
Yep.
That's awesome. Right here in the United States. Man, keep it up, and love to, like, as things progress with that partner that you got now.
Yeah.
You got any big news, let us know. And then, we always like to end, like, Colton mentioned, by the way, that you reached out to me because you've been listening to our podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you doing that.
For sure.
And I think that, hopefully we can continue to build up our listener base, because I really think that if nothing else, it's fun to have folks like you come in. And so you did respond kind of in the podcast, say, hey man, love what you got going on, and it restruck our relationship and bring you in. So I encourage any listener that's out there, if you have a business, reach out. If you have ideas or topics or questions that you have, if you have questions for Colton, reach out. and maybe we can have him back on the show and answer some of those things and do a little bit more of a scripting thing rather than this organic, whatever the hell's in my brain at this very moment question that I got. But don't forget to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Tell your friends, and then if you want to advertise, Colton, do you want to buy an ad on our podcast? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to sell you just like that. But if you wanted to advertise, because this is what keeps us going. This is what helps us help you.
Yeah. Right? There you go. You got to keep the lights on somehow, right?
The lights on, man. We need some advertising.
For sure.
Nah, we're not about to run out of money anytime soon. But, so anyway, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Fantastic product. Love it, man.
Thank you.
Love to have you on and hear more about the story.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You got it, man.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk About Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business, and be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.